All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 5 of our Jeep TJ Wrangler bolt-on performance series. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and do a tune on the computer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and connect our HP tuners up, and we're going to pull out the stock tune. All right, hang tight. Let's get after it. Alright, so we hooked up our HP tuners and we downloaded the tune from the Jeep. We're going to go ahead and make a couple changes. I think I'm going to add a little bit of fuel on the top end, and I think we'll also add a couple degrees of spark timing. We'll make those changes, and then I'm going to go ahead and send that tune back to the ECU, and we'll get set up for run number 1. All right, I want to take a couple quick seconds to mention today's video sponsor, TexasJeepProducts.com. They have a wide selection of Jeep 4.0 Wrangler performance parts. If you're into that sort of thing, go check out the website, TexasJeepProducts.com. And now let's get back to the video. All right, so our timer has gone off and we're fully up to temp. We're rolled out. Everything should be hooked up. Let's go ahead and start our first pull. Go ahead, we'll stop this. So it's a little cooler today. IATs are a little bit cooler. So with our spark modified, we start at 21, 22 degrees and we end up at 27, 28 degrees. And another thing that we can drop in here as well that might help us a little bit, I thought, yeah, injector pulse width. So it's actually up here at 17.5 milliseconds. I may drop that in. Ooh, gets up to 20 milliseconds there in the middle. Yeah, let's take a look and see what the dyno has to say. All right, you can see we have our dyno pulled up here, and we've got our 4-hole run, the best of the 4-hole run, and then this last run in red. And you can see we picked up our power on the low end again. We got our power and torque back. You know, there's 10 foot-pounds right there. You know, some horsepower. It's about 7 horsepower, give or take. And that was because we took what was this previous run in blue and we moved that down, richened it up a little bit on the low end, and then kept that fuel about the same on the top end. And what that did was raised our horsepower up a little bit on the low end and pretty much stayed the same on the top end. What's interesting is our 3 degrees of timing really didn't seem to do a whole heck of a lot, which leads me to believe that maybe we're not going to get there with timing. We might add in another couple degrees. I didn't hear it chuckle at all. There was no signs of detonation audibly anyway. So what I might do is lean this out just a little bit down here, and then I will add in a couple degrees and we'll see if we can get anything to happen up there. Otherwise, we might be about as good as we can get just fixing the fuel. So let's get back on HP tuners and let's work on that for a second. All right, we are back for run number 2. I went ahead and tweaked the fuel a little bit on the top end. I pulled a few percent out to try and raise that air-fuel ratio up just a little bit. I added 2 degrees of timing at wide open throttle, and I went ahead, sent that to the PCM, and we will go ahead and start the pull. let's stop this and let's take a look. So about 22 degrees up to 29, almost 30 degrees at the very top. And everything else looks pretty clean. Let's go take a look at the dyno and see what the data says. All right, so back here at the dyno, yeah, we picked up a little bit of power. That's cool. So we went from 136.0 to 139.5, and it's a little bit leaner here on the bottom. I don't hate that. 13.6, I'm not mad at that. Actually, you know, picked up just a little bit of power, so we're heading in the right direction. And maybe we're there, I don't know. Little lean out here. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more in it, but honestly up top, you know, at the higher RPMs, it drops down to 13.2. That's not terrible. Maybe in this mid-range, like right here, I'd like to see it down just a little bit. But overall, I'm not mad at that. I didn't hear any spark knock at all. It sounded pretty good. Probably getting on to being a little bit on the aggressive side of the timing, almost 30 degrees. I'm gonna probably just throw a little bit of fuel in down low here, and I'll toss another 2 degrees in, and we'll see if it picks up anything at all on the top. If it doesn't pick anything up, I would say we probably hit kind of our limit for timing as far as what it likes. If it's not gaining when we're throwing degrees at it, it's done. We need to go back a little bit on the conservative side and maybe even pull a few degrees out. But if we continue to see gains and we're not hearing any spark knock, I'm not afraid on this motor with low compression and the good fuel we have in it to just keep pushing it up and see where it's happy. But that's pretty awesome. So we got 139 from 136, and we got 178 from 170 torque. So I don't hate that at all. I mean, that's a nice little bump. And you know, for anybody who already has an HP tuner, it's worth noting, you know, the dongles are fairly expensive, or the actual unit themselves, but this tune costs $50. The credit's worth about 50 bucks. I get a little bit of a discount. I think I get them for like 42 or something like that. But you know, it's pretty cheap for another couple horsepower, $40, $50, whatever. As long as you don't have to buy the whole thing. If you have to buy the whole suite, I think it's 600 some odd dollars. Probably not worth it for the few little horsepower. But you know, guys have done in the past as well, is they'll start a little group with some of their buddies, and I think you can put, I don't remember how many vehicles HP will let you do on one unit, but it's quite a few. It's like 25, or maybe it's more than that, I don't know. They've changed it. I've got a MVPI2. I think they're on the 3 now. I also have a 1 somewhere around here. You know, it probably depends on that as well. But anyway, long story to get back to, you know, a few horsepower here, 3 horsepower, 8 foot-pounds of torque. Let's go ahead, make some changes in HP. We'll come back and we'll make another pull. Hang tight. All right, it is time for run number 3. Went ahead and I made those couple little changes in HP, added 2 more degrees, added a little bit more fuel on the low end. And we'll go ahead and see if that makes any difference. Here we go. Let's go take a look. All right, well, it looks like that's about all she's gonna suffer. We actually lost 1 horsepower and a couple foot-pounds of torque, and it doesn't look like we gained really anywhere. A little safer down here in the lower 13s, and it kind of goes to like 13.7. I might, you know, on my own, I'll probably smooth this out a little bit in the middle yet. Up here on top, it looks pretty good. We're, you know, low 13s, dropping into the very high 12s. But our power looks, you know, pretty much the same from run 2 to run 3. We added those 2 degrees. It doesn't look like we got any sort of gain out of those 2 degrees at all. If anything, it maybe dropped just slightly. So we've kind of hit that point NA where, you know, having that spark happen a little bit earlier isn't really getting us any more power. The fuel has plenty time to burn, and you know, we're not increasing the efficiency by having that spark happen a little bit earlier. So we can go ahead and dial that back a few degrees, put it back, you know, a little bit in the safer range. Like I said, I might mess with that just a little bit, but I think I'm pretty happy where it's at. Overall, it looks like, you know, when we compare this back to one of our previous runs, so I'll go ahead and get rid of run 2, I'm sorry, and then we'll go back to our 4-hole injector, our best, and then we come back up here and we compare. Not a lot on the top end, you know, really only about a horsepower on the top. But down low here, that was the real victory of the day. You know, 9-10 horsepower, wow. I mean, that's something. 154 to 172 torque, and for it to be safer with our air fuel, you know, in the mid-13s, making the power, being a little bit safer down low. And that's what all these folks like, is that down low power. They keep telling me, we want more power down low. Let's compare this. I want to go back and look at our tune-up. Actually, let's go post tune-up, but with the Windstar. See, this is getting all kinds of confusing. Windstar best is what I'm interested in. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of our 4-hole best. Remove. So we have our best today versus our Windstar best. This kind of takes the 4-hole business out of the equation a little bit, because, you know, we determined that when we did those 4-hole injectors, we got that little bit leaner air fuel ratio. So this would be more like if a guy just had an intake on, you were doing a tune, but with stock injectors, you were able to fix the air fuel. I mean, you remember originally we were starting out in the 13.4s, then we were dropping way down, and look at here on top, you know, we were getting into the low 11s, and we raised it up to 13.1. So this is comparing basically stock injectors with the Windstar intake with a tune. Long story short, it's a tongue twister. So 100 to 94 and 11 foot-pounds, you know, at 3,000 RPM, going all the way up here. You know, there's almost 10 foot-pounds all the way up top. You know, 125 to 133, 136 to 145 torque. That's a pretty good gain. So, you know, if a guy didn't change his injectors and all you did was had the Windstar intake and you went ahead and just did a tune, this would be kind of what you should sort of expect as far as a power increase. So there's, you know, 7 to 10 horsepower, give or take, and about 10 foot-pounds all the way across. That's pretty good if you can get in at that $50 price point. The $650 price point, it'd be a little bit tougher sell. 10 horsepower, it was a lot better when we were talking about a $100 Windstar intake for 10 horsepower. It's a lot harder to sell $650-ish for 10 horsepower, and that's sort of where you end up, you know, with the performance side of stuff. Is, you know, it's really easy to get the first couple horsepower and it's cheap, and then it starts getting exponentially more expensive as we get into it. But still not terrible bang for the buck if you can get it for 50 bucks. And I guess with that, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go and do our 0 to 60, and we're gonna get that run done. And we have our tip in low throttle, or whatever we want to call it, stab test. Stab is what we've been calling it. We're gonna do our stab test, our idle vibration test, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Let's go ahead and get set up on our 0 to 60. All right, we are set up for our 0 to 60 test, and this is with our HP Tuners tune. I have not made any changes to it. It still has all the timing and fuel in it. Let's go ahead and get that test started in 3, 2, 1. right, let's go take a look at the results. All right, it looks like we're starting to really do something here. This is our stock 0 to 60 before we did any mods compared to where we are today. And it looks like today we started at 1 second. The stock, it looks like we started at 1.4. So we need to basically add, you know, that time so that we can get them the same. So it looks like we hit 60 right here at 6.8 seconds. So, you know, roughly, I guess that puts us at, so if it's, okay, well, for 6.8 there, and then the stock, we hit it at basically 8. And I'm terrible at math, and this is so simple, but so 6.8, so that's 7.2 if we add our 4/10 versus our 8.0. I think this is starting to show some long-term trends, some long-term gains. And if we look at our air fuel, you can see before it kind of dipped real low here, 11 point, and now it just kind of holds nice and steady. I think that's really starting to show us something. Not sure that this is accurate because it's showing us the spike on the shift here, but you can see out here in the later part of the gear, you know, about the time we get rolling real hard in second, you know, our original, we were at 105 horsepower. Now we're at 132 horsepower. That is a lot when you compare the two. You know, if we switch this to engine speed and we say we're in second gear on both of them, it's probably going to be all kinds of messed up. But our second gear, as we're rolling out, you know, say 3,700 RPM or so, 108 to 124, 154 to 176 torque, I think we're really starting to see some pretty substantial increases. And that's awesome to me, that what we're doing is actually resulting in actual measurable power. So that's really cool. Let's go ahead and set up on our stab test, and we'll get into that here in just a second. Hang tight. All right, we're set up on our stab test. I'm gonna go ahead, I started the sampling. We're in first gear, and once again, we're just gonna stab this up to about 4,000, try and get some low horsepower, low torque numbers. And we're gonna do that in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go take a look. All right, I'm actually gonna compare this to our WinStar stab test. Our 4-hole stab test was kind of goofy. It seems like the data's a little corrupted or something. It just reads really funky, but you can see here that, you know, just going from the WinStar up to our latest run file 5, there's 5 horsepower at 2,300. And there's 75 to 82. But look at the foot-pounds, 135 to 147. Wow. So it looks like going in and adding that little bit of fuel down low really seems to have made a pretty nice difference. I mean, I don't hate that at all over the place. There's 105 to 113. It's in a little bit of a valley, but you know, we're gonna count it. So 96 to 102, 141 to 151 torque, that's 10 foot-pounds. So this test looks like it ran right from about 2170 to 4,300, give or take. So that's kind of the meat right there. You know, the torque converter flashes up about 2,000 to 25. So I mean, this is the meat that people talk about, and that's a nice little gain right there. Let's look at our air fuel, and of course it's a mess because we got speed on there. Let's turn that off. Okay, so down low, you know, we're a little bit richer air fuel, slightly, but then it starts to, you know, come apart here. A little bit leaner there than I'd like. 14.0. I want to throw a little bit more fuel in this tune after we get off here, but I don't hate that. It looks really good, and I'm glad to see that we're starting to, on our stab test, to see a little bit of low end power as well. So looks like the tune with that little bit of advanced timing down low has given us a little bit of a zip. The air fuel actually is not much different, so it's got to be timing. That's the only real difference. So that's really cool to see. Let's go ahead and next we're going to set up on our idle quality test, and then we'll go and start talking conclusions. All right, we've got our vibration test set up here. It looks like, it looks very similar to the previous test. I really didn't anticipate a whole bunch of gain on this one. We really only messed with wide open throttle. It's worth noting that if we did, you know, some timing down low and mess with the idle a little bit, we might be able to, you know, manipulate this a little bit, but we didn't do that in this test. This was mostly just a wide open throttle test, so pretty much the same numbers, which is to be anticipated. Let's go ahead and come up with some conclusions and wrap this guy up. All right, so let's talk some conclusions. I would say that, in my opinion, doing the HP Tuner tune was, you know, good for a few more horsepower, especially down low. We were able to fix some of the problems that we created with those 4-hole injectors. You know, it gets a little bit off in the weeds. It would have been nice to do one with stock injectors, and you know, there's 100 different configurations we could do on all these tests, and I could probably make videos till the end of time trying different configurations and playing with, you know, clean injectors versus 100,000 mile or 200,000 mile, and, you know, aftermarket injectors and everybody's flavor, different timing numbers, spark plugs. I mean, the list is absolutely endless. Some of y'all have been a great help with your suggestions, but we just have to draw the line somewhere. We can't do this for 10 years, or maybe we can, I don't know, we'll see. But you know, in conclusion, I would say, you know, for $50, we had the dongle already, 1 credit, adding a little bit of timing, cleaning up the fuel. I'm going to drive this thing around a little bit and also clean up some of the drivability, and we can also then go in and modify some of the off-idle spark and some of that stuff as well. So we get a little bit more benefit than just wide open throttle. Unfortunately, there's not really a good way for us to test that here, so it's not really worth my time to sit here and go through all that tuning process. But I would say, in conclusion, you know, we were able to get a few more horsepower, even some down low, which I think is a good benefit for a lot of folks that use their power down low more than up. So I would say it's probably worth it, but I guess you be the judge. Go ahead, write in the comments if you think there's anything else we should test with this. Otherwise, I think we're going to go ahead and move on. Episode 6 is going to be throttle body. I've got an eBay bigger throttle body. I think it's a 62 millimeter. We're going to go ahead and put that thing on here, put it back on the dyno. It's going to be a little easier for us, not so much extra work. This one was a long one. But we'll get back to that probably next week. And in the meantime, if you like the content, like, subscribe, do all the things, comment, do some more comments. I try and read them all, answer as best I can. I'm not a, you know, I'm self-proclaimed, we'll call amateur expert level on some of this stuff. But yeah, go ahead and do all those things. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.